We'll give her another day. I know she was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just, I'm glad they finished.
Yeah. Congratulations on the team.
It was a good year.
I was hoping the Cubs and the Red Sox could play this year, but
That would have been good. We have both flags.
yeah. Cubs didn't show up as usual. Long stuff. Hey, we won. That's a fun stadium to go to. Was the old one? Here. Oh, yeah. But you know what? It's easier for us to go to Brewers games. You know, because I'm halfway between Zabano and Washington. Monisher. Oh. Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Pretty nuts.
You don't have a key? Well, that's everything's left there.
You have to be 2 or more meetings to get it.
2 or more meetings to get a key? Oh, no.
Passcode. Yeah.
Now we start listening. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order. May we have roll call, please?
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Friedman,
Present.
Commissioner Maybe.
Here.
Commissioner Nate. Yes.
We will now have a moment of silence. Thank you. Please rise for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda, we have public comments. Individuals are reminded to direct their comments to things that we have oversight on as a city commission, and also to not address issues that are further down in the agenda. Please come to the podium. Any public comment? Do I have a motion on the consent items A, B, C, and D from the commission, or one that you would like to pull for discussion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass consent items A, B, C, D.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
Four.
Commissioner Nate. Yes.
Motion passes. Tonight, we have no proclamations, no scheduled public comment, and no public meetings. We do have 2 ordinances. First ordinance is ordinance number 2073, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending Chapter 5 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Taxation and Finance by deleting requirements on special improvement districts which are more restrictive than those imposed by state law. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the first reading of this ordinance. We will have the public hearing at the next meeting. This is part of the city's effort to start to revise and update the code. This was an item that is already covered in state law. There's pretty extensive guidance in the state law, and our ordinance is redundant. It also made some requirements that we felt were not in the best interest of the citizens, of which some were the cost that we had to charge for administrative fees, which on small projects were reasonable, but on large projects was much more than the city needed to recoup in administrative costs. So this is an effort to align the city's ordinances with the state. In this case, we feel the states are sufficient on their own, and so we're just deleting the city's reference to special improvement districts.
Thank you. First, we'll open it to public comment. Any public comment on ordinance number 2073? Any public comment? Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Or,
Just a question, would that even be legal to supersede state law with city code?
As far as legality goes, all of our requirements were either the same or more stringent than the state, so we could put greater requirements on it. Other administrations do have these fees assigned with it, so it would be legal. We just didn't think it was necessary.
Thank you.
any other commissioner questions, comments? Do we have a motion on ordinance number 2073?
I move we pass ordinance 2073.
Second.
We have a motion by Maybe and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Maybe,
Four.
Commissioner Davis. Yes.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have ordinance number 2074, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending Article 2, Chapter 30 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Zoning by creating an exception to the minimum size requirements for manufactured homes. Sorry, I cannot talk tonight. Mr. Pardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a change to our zoning ordinance. What it does is basically create an exception to the minimum square footage for manufactured homes. This is in response to an HRDC project that they are currently trying to put on property they already own up near the reservoir. They have done a similar project in Belgrade, which was very successful. However, the size of their manufactured homes are less than the square footage that the city code requires. City code currently requires 1,000 square feet. These are more in the range of 500 square feet. So they're smaller, single-family residences that can be maintained. What we did to, I would say, lessen the unintended consequences of such a change is we limited it to government agencies or nonprofits that are specifically affordable housing related and that will manage the property themselves. So this doesn't open it up to anyone to build, to move in small manufactured homes. It does limit it to organizations that are specifically trying to address affordable housing in the community. To that end, we also restricted it to households earning less than 80%. So the plan by the organization, in this case HRDC, but it would apply to any organization, is that it must be offered to households earning less than 80% of the area median income. And they must also provide us a management plan that speaks to the affordability, to include any proposed rents for the units, a management plan to include who's eligible and how they plan to intake them, and then proposed deed restrictions to be placed on the property to make sure that if it's transferred, that this zoning doesn't transfer with it. If it goes away from the nonprofit for affordable housing.
Do you have any public comment on ordinance number, I lost my number. 2074. Any public comment on ordinance number 2074? Please state your name and address.
Brian Geyer, 1007 South Grand, Bozeman. I'm the Community Development Manager for HRDC. I have some photos here of the units that we had installed over in Belgrade. Pass those around. We just want to reiterate our support for this zone text amendment. HRDC has been working in Livingston for several years now, providing below market rental properties. We really think that this certainly won't single-handedly address any affordable housing issues that Livingston is dealing with. It will just be one in sort of a bundle of approaches to help the community meet their desire to provide housing for their workforce. The reason for the limit was really that manufacturers don't meet IBC building standards, but for community housing that will be relaxed. This project over in Belgrade has been received very well by the community. It took less than 6 months to lease it up. There was just such a demand for a below market rental option in Belgrade, and we feel like the conditions, while different in Livingston, there are enough similarities that this would really kind of help us to meet some of the demand for housing here in the city of Livingston. So, like I said, this is just one kind of idea that HRDC has kind of deployed in some of the communities that we serve as the de facto housing agency for Gallatin Park and Mark County. And we think that, with some exterior improvements that you see in the renderings there, they really do fit into the neighborhoods where we've placed them. And again, they've been really well received by our new tenants. So, any questions that you have?
Would you be implementing the changes that CommonQ did on these, with these units that?
We would go through a similar process. We always try to take into account characteristics of the neighborhood. So we wouldn't leave them as is, but we would make them consistent with.
Yeah, because I remember looking at those
Yeah.
a year and a half ago or so when talking with Tracy about it.
Um,
I really like the idea.
Yeah, and the other thing that we've done is spend heavily on the landscaping to really kind of
That
make sure
huge
that,
thing, yeah.
exactly, in a few years, there'll be a net addition to whatever.
Glad to be moving forward.
Warren?
My main concern would be the second and third item in the management plan. The client eligibility and intake and the proposed deed restrictions. I forgot what publication it was from, but it involved the same type plan in Aspen. And the average, not median, the average price of a house in Aspen is $7 million. And at the low end, it's $1 to $2 million. And they had something like 2,000 of this type housing. And then they ran into the problem of people retiring and staying there. So the housing was no longer available for the new workers.
Right.
I don't expect an answer, but again, I didn't get a chance to read the whole report. But there were some questions that raised, and that was one of the main ones.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid concern. Certainly, the conditions in Livingston are still a pretty far cry from what's happening in Aspen and Vail and some of the other resort communities throughout the West. But including that portion in our management plan is something that we're absolutely willing to do, and we would take input from the city on that. I really kind of followed your guidance.
Thank you.
Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just want to point out that, well, this came about because HRDC had a plan and had a program. This is not specific to their current development. This would apply to all anywhere that this zoning was currently allowed, this would be allowed to any government agency or nonprofit that was doing affordable housing.
Yeah, it's
So-
not just projects.
Right, this isn't project specific, this is a zoning change. And those answers would hopefully be given in the next stage, which would be the subdivision approval in that process.
Yeah.
But this, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that this changes it across the board for all zoning.
Yeah, HRDC is certainly not the only organization capable of doing something like this. I think you went with the Shoto kind of definition for a community housing development organization. So it's somebody who's gonna know their way
Right.
around housing.
I have a question.
Let's go
Is,
ahead.
for this, project, or for any project, what are we looking at in terms of housing density? Like, what would this look like with the various, residential zoning?
It would depend a lot on the zone it's in. Currently, manufactured homes are allowed in all residential zoning districts. So it could be done in any density of zoning. However, because it is limited to nonprofits or government agencies, they're not gonna be looking for a low density option. This is gonna be mainly in the high density zones. R2, R3 is probably where it's gonna show up, because it wouldn't be practical and wouldn't be affordable if you did it in a lower density housing.
Thank you.
Yeah, density is pretty much the way you get to the levels of affordability that you're gonna need to meet the need of your community.
So we don't have a specific lot size,
We don't.
no
And
no minimum.
and that's because applies only to manufactured homes. All the lot sizes still apply, all the other zoning restrictions still apply. This just allows less than 1,000 square foot manufactured.
Okay, okay. That's, I think that's what Melissa was trying to say, perhaps, first density goes.
Melissa, are you done, Philip?
Yeah.
Okay. For email.
Yes,
Any other questions?
I have a question on, so this is, like your examples could apply to like the man camp. That's what they were, right?
So
Where they came from.
the story of how HRDC kind of came upon these units, an investment firm out of New York had bought some cabins to place up in the Bakken oil field, and then the bottom of the commodities market fell out. They were sitting up in Sydney and they'd never been used. And so they contacted us because, quite frankly, the only other place that in the country that wanted them was in Texas, which would have required them to drive them literally past the manufacturing plant for these units. And so we were able to purchase them at a very, for pennies on the dollar, essentially. And to us, with construction costs being what they are, and they're rising even since we purchased them, we could not put up 4 walls and a roof for the price that we got these for. And so we were like, well, we'll just take the risk. We'll bring them in, we'll determine how we're going to use them once they arrive. They've been used over in Gardner for employee housing, in West Yellowstone, obviously Belgrade. It's been a really successful usage of those. We've also sold some to Homeward, which is a nonprofit housing organization out of Missoula. They're using them. And they've really been used across the housing spectrum, from transitional housing to, even in Missoula, they're using them as starter homes. We've found that the easiest and the most kind of beneficial to the communities we serve has been offering them as below market rentals. And so that's kind of what our approach has been, but they certainly, they've been used for a variety. And in every community where we've placed these, they've been pretty well received.
So at this time, and Michael, this is maybe towards you, I want to clarify. This is about changing the size. Okay. This is taking like a man camp. I'm from Williston, North Dakota, so I'm from the Bakken originally, but we never called it the Bakken before. But when it comes to finalizing this project in the future, it's going to come through the zoning commission or not the zoning commission, planning, because this is their zoning request. And then it would come to a project, like, concept, everything from start to the end, right? And Because this is only about the zoning change of the of required square footage.
So this, yes, this is only about the zoning. It doesn't do anything with the project. However, HRDC already owns that land up
Yeah,
there.
they've already.
I don't know if they'd have to go through a subdivision approval process for that, because they already, as long as it meets the zoning requirements, then they can build it.
Okay, so,
Sidewalks are there, the apron, the approaches are there and all that.
so the, prefab homes you see on TV, does this apply? So as far as the look and the designs of these prefab homes, it's pretty minimal as far as the requirements, right? And the planning will then decide what they accept as fitting into the expectations or the requirements of our planning documents.
As long as they meet the current requirements. And in this case, the only thing this relaxes is the square footage requirement for the home.
Okay, I think I have. most of
Could
the
any,
questions.
anyone, neighbors, do they have any recourse since it's not a variance? Would they have any recourse in terms of disapproving the construction
So
or the location?
generically, no. This is a zoning change and they would meet the requirements of the zone. So there is no, they can't, it's not a variance, it's not a change. If it meets the requirements, then there's nothing to protest. In this case, for this particular project, I think HRDC is their own neighbor. They're the ones next door.
That's true, but with that being said, the reason we've been a little kind of vague with the details is we still have to do a lot of outreach to the neighbors because we want them to be aware and kind of pleased with what our plans are, and we haven't done that outreach yet, and so that's kind of our next step before we kind of release all of the details on this. So that's a little project specific, but right.
But overall, as long as the requirements of the zone are met, so they still have to meet all the current requirements. It just changes the requirements for the nonprofits to have fewer square feet.
Thank you.
So at this time on this request, the square footage is changing from minimum of 1,000 to no requirement.
No requirement for government agencies or housing agencies.
So it could be like a 200 square foot prefab.
It could be, I doubt, I mean, there's no, I don't think they go that low. I don't think there is anything that low.
Like a tiny house.
Yeah, I'm thinking tiny houses,
Yeah, the prefabs really don't go that low.
pretty little ones out there. Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? I know we haven't actually opened it to public comment, and I apologize, which we usually do at the beginning. Any commissioner questions or comments before we open it to the public?
I have one last question. Do you have an example of, since this is in so many other communities, examples of this, like what percentage of the mean rent these types of homes typically rent for?
The mean, I'm not,
Like compared to the average, because obviously the average in Gardner is going to be different than the average in Livingston. So I'm wondering, like, how does it compare to other things on the market?
yeah. Our metrics are really, is more based on the area median income and what income tranche you're serving with that. And this, in every community, we've hit below the 80% income tranche. And in some communities, we've been able to get as low as the 40 to 50% ARI. So it really is community specific, but never more than 80%.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
Thanks for your time.
Any public comment on ordinance number 2074? I'm just going to say this out loud since you're here, our presenter, is I hope it doesn't look like the man camps of North Dakota. Just
We are
having driven
very,
through there like 2 weeks ago.
we're very conscious of that.
Okay, good, thank you. Do I have a motion from the commission on ordinance number 2074?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I make a motion we pass ordinance 2074.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Schwartz. Roll call, please.
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Maybe,
4.
Commissioner Friedman.
Oops. Do
Sorry,
you want to start over?
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Maybe,
4.
Commissioner New.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda is resolution number 4829, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, declaring its intention to create a tourism business improvement district consisting of non-contiguous lands within the City of Livingston for the purpose of aiding in tourism, promotion, and marketing within the district. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, this is a resolution of intent, so there will be a public hearing on it next meeting. So this is the first reading for this one. This is going to create a district similar to our current business improvement district. And this one is more tourism related, so we're gonna let the CBD president present this particular resolution to you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. I like to see that number finally. It's been 4 years in the making for trying to create a TBID here in Livingston. I'm going to read to you a little bit about what the TBID is and what it means here. What is a tourism BID? A tourism BID is a new opportunity for Livingston to generate additional spending to recruit visitors and grow the economy. A tourism BID would simply include an additional fee of $1 per night and assessed for each occupied room night. At the end of each quarter, the fees collected would be remitted to the Livingston treasurer. Actually, we have thus changed that. I have worked with Kevin Larkin, who would be remitting those payments and the bills. And to be held, then passed on to the CVB to be held in a TBID account to be utilized upon the approved board's funding recommendations. So,
Leslie, will you tell everyone what your acronyms mean so the public can?
absolutely. So, Convention and Visitors Bureau is the CVB, and we were recognized by the city in 2014. And a tourism BID, Business Improvement District. So what we are asking is for the Livingston TBID. And that will again be this function that we're speaking about tonight. So Livingston has an average of $40,000 in annual lodging tax budget to recruit visitors, and these dollars have basically leveled against unless we add more hotels, with direct annual visitor spending in Livingston focusing on spring and summer tourism. Developing a tourism BID will provide the appropriate competitiveness to resources to grow our visitors' economy to a year-round destination, not only for travel, but for conference and events location. There are a number of restrictions on how the current lodging tax can be utilized when it comes to marketing, and it's very strict. However, a TBID will be able to be more in-state aggressive and more creative. How do we start it? Basically, once we adopt a resolution, we can immediately, starting in January, if we can get this passed in time, we can start with our quarterly, our documentation, which will be passed out quarterly and starting to receive funds almost immediately within the first quarter of 2019. So Livingston Lodging Facilities would have to petition to establish a TBID in the city council, then we need to create the local TBID. The city then appoints the Livingston CVB to be the tourism BID manager, business improvement district manager. The list would be provided. It consists of lodging owners and GMs that would be candidates for the appointment to an oversight board. Currently, right now, I will go over this in just a moment, but we have all 7 hotels. As you know, we have lost recently 1 hotel, but we have all 7 others that are currently signed up, and I have all of their signatures in place. We have 5 of them that have would like board seats. So, so basically, what will it cost? Per Montana Annotated Code, Title 7, Chapter 12, Section 712-1133, as amended by the 2007 legislature, assessments can be done on a flat fee basis. In our case, we are asking for $1 per night. I recently went to the TBID meeting in the state with all of the other TBIDs, and they told us we should have started at 2, but we're going to start out at 1. Now, once we do sign up, this is a 10-year commitment. So once we start this, our 7 hotels are committed to, within the district, to 10 years. Should another hotel come into that district, they will automatically, within the district, as well sign up for a TBID assessment. The current chamber CDB already has staff. This is one of the requirements. You must have a paid position. And we already have the infrastructure in place promoting Livingston in regional, national, and international markets. The tourism BID funds would be used to enhance current programs, develop new markets, and devote to increasing overnight stays in Livingston. The trend for the CVB is to further integrate themselves into total destination management. We have adopted the title Destination Management Organizations. As you know, our new marketing is the year-round destination on the banks of the Yellowstone River. And that is our Livingston Chamber and CVB's marketing here for Livingston. In addition to the traditional role of sales and marketing, they are becoming more involved for funding, facility support, visioning of the future growth and needs for the community to alert groups and individuals. This is the situation that currently exists through the integrated approach at the Chamber and Convention and Visitors Bureau. Drafting and introducing and being point on the Tourism Business Improvement District, developing events and educational programs of interest to the hospitality industry through customer service training, leadership development, and more. I have currently had to sit down with Lynn Scalia. This is something that is going to be a huge opportunity through our schools for encouraging more tournament play and conferences. She just attended one recently that she told me in Butte, and they went to the Fairmont, and I'm like, you could have had that here. We have the beds and we have the marketing ability, and in the future we'll be able to have the bid funds to be able to produce this. And for, say, a soccer tournament or a tennis match, this is something that the organization could come to the BID board and say that they need some funding for, say, this, the referees or marketing for the events. So that's kind of loosely how it works. The budget, if Livingston were to implement a dollar assessment on each occupied room and total occupied room nights were to stay at the current levels, are roughly 344 beds within the city district, 7 hotels currently, would generate up between, and we did an estimate with our 7 hotels, and it would generate between $90,000 and $129,000 for the first year. And that depends on how our winters go, kind of. This would be in addition to the $40,000 in current bed tax funds that we currently use through the Convention and Visitor Bureau for our annual marketing plan. And the TBID must be used to benefit the collector. That's our hotels. The number one measurable objective will to increase citywide hotel demand, the number of rooms occupied annually regardless of total rooms available. Priority target audiences will be at citywide events, again, the sporting events and conferences. In 1939, I'm up here before speaking to you about 1939, Livingston, Montana. This is what set me off on this whole tract. Livingston, Montana was the meeting and conference place for the entire state. We need to go back to that. I've been working on this for 4 years. And to gain the trust, I think I had to prove myself and our CVB and our board over the years of what we could accomplish for this community. And that was to bring and strengthen the tourism here. So Dax Schiffer of Voices Montana intended on being here, but when we changed the meeting night, there were a few people that could not attend. So he sent me something. I'm just going to give you a few points. This was handed out to you. It looks like a little map. And on here, so if you look at over $3.4 billion in non-resident travelers spent in Montana in 2017, Livingston, what fuels Livingston economy and creates jobs, we saw $185 million in spending by non-resident visitors in 2017, making Livingston the top 6 performing counties, Livingston and Park County, in the state of Montana. And that's pretty incredible. Non-resident spending supported over 2,930 jobs in Park County alone. The TBID allows local control of marketing dollars. In the past 7 years, over $161 million has been deposited into the state general fund with lodging taxes alone. $1.2 million was collected in Livingston that went to the state programs and general fund. And a TBID in our community will be in addition to that and will help us with more jobs and infrastructure through, well, not infrastructure is what you think, but infrastructure through our hotels and our restaurants, things that they need to be able to create a healthier economy within our hoteliers and our restaurants, and things like our soccer fields and events that we can have here, conference center, things like that would be good for our community. So for marketing those type of things, once you get the infrastructure in place, we could do all the marketing, encourage people to come in. So that's how that works. Promotion matters. In a competitive marketplace, travelers have many options. Livingston cannot take its success for granted. Every dollar in spending in advertising, $74 comes back in return for non-residents spending based on the 2017 data, and that's with ITRR, who is our regional, with Missoula. They do a lot of our reporting on our travels that come here. So, I just wanted to be able to get a little bit of this data out to you. We do have a lot of folks in the community right now that would be maybe listening on the speaker and watching us, or in the room behind me, that say that tourism can be a hindrance or a burden on our community that already has infrastructure issues and needs. That's just like across the United States. Not only is the state of Montana, but the United States is dealing with infrastructure issues. But we have to create a better, safer, and more attractive community, and that's through tourism when we are in a state that the economy is based on tourism, if that makes sense. If you look at the top 4 items in Park County for 2017, and I have the numbers that came in, I believe you were given this, I gave it to Patricia, she handed out a couple of meetings ago. Our top 4 for non-resident spending, over $39 million in gasoline and diesel and gasoline sales and rental car sales. So those are the people that stayed in our hotels and then filled up before they went to the park or on their way down the freeway, and vice versa. They came out, needed gas after that long drive, and then stayed in our hotels. Number 2, restaurants and bars, over $33 million. And those people stayed in our hotels and went to the restaurants to eat. This is all things that can be actually marketed, again, through our Tourism Business Improvement District, through the funding that we will get and achieve. Our hotels is number 3 on the list with over $33 million in spending last year. And number 4 is our guides and outfitters. And again, you wonder why I bring that up? Guides and outfitters, river rafting guides, fly fishing guides, horseback rides. This is also the hunting. Whether you believe in hunting or not, over 50%, it's over 52% of the elk out of the entire state of Montana are taken here in Park County. And that is a lot of people out of those hunting camps right now. And I can tell you, after 4 days at a hunting camp, they head to the hotels and they get a shower and they stay for the night before they head to the airport. And, the hotels, I think that this is going to be a great thing for them to be able to have a say what happens in our community and our economy. And right now, I'm going to bring up Alex, and Alex Tyson is with Billings. Billings actually was the forefront and the start of the Tourism Business Improvement District for the state of Montana. She's not as nervous as I am when she speaks, so I'm going to call Alex.
Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight, Chairwoman, Commissioners, and Mr. Cardos. My name is Alex Tyson. I am the Executive Director of Visit Billings, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Billings, which is the state lodging tax entity. And I'm also the Executive Director of the Tourism Business Improvement District in Billings.
and we are managed by the Chamber of Commerce. If I can just note how much I love your community. I actually spent 15 summers in Mammoth, and I married a gentleman from Gardner. So we're very close to Livingston, love Livingston, and it's been a pleasure to work with Leslie on this great next step, I hope, for your community. The Tourism Business Improvement District for Billings was a complete and total game changer. And if you'll take a look at this document that has been passed out, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of how the TBID changed the game. If you look at the blue solid line that notes 2005 to 2009, and then you have the dotted black line from 2010 to 2015, prior to the 2007 legislative session, the only other tool outside of the resort tax and the state lodging tax to help market and sell our communities. And of course, the resort tax has the population limit. We were tied at the hands of the state lodging tax, which is a great tool. I don't want to, misconstrue that the state lodging tax is very important to tourism in the state of Montana and all of our communities. But if you look at Billings, for instance, our 7% that we send to Helena is $6 million this year. We will get back $350,000 of that money. We were essentially getting our rear ends kicked by all of the competitive cities. This is Rapid City, this is Cheyenne, this is Boise, this is Spokane. We weren't even players in the game of sports tourism, of meeting and convention tourism, and of course, leisure, which is as important to you guys as it is to us. And so in 2007, we, utilizing the bid language, our Chamber of Commerce in Billings, Bruce McIntyre, who was our government affairs director at the time, we went to Helena and we utilized the business improvement district language and started the tourism business improvement district language and got it passed in 2007. Billings started assessing our hotels 75 cents. Now it's $2 per occupied room night. In 2007. And we went from a $350,000 budget where we had, as Leslie mentioned, very restricted dollars, important marketing and sales dollars, yes, but very restricted on what we could do with them. And our budget this year will be $1.7 million in Tourism Business Improvement District dollars. Now I know that that's a lot. We have almost 5,000 hotel rooms, but I want to just put it into perspective for you. When you look at the fact that we were number one, and a lot of times it was just, well, it's Billings, you're a large city, we don't care, we don't stack up, like it's a different type of conversation for other communities. Livingston would be number 19. And there are all sorts of cities and communities of every single size, shape, need that are now part of the Tourism Business Improvement District programs. As I mentioned, it was a game changer for us, and we have to remember that the state lodging tax, the resort tax, the Tourism Business Improvement District assessments, these are all tools. They're economic development tools. They're tools in which we can help support our businesses and our community and our workforce. If you get back to this, this occupancy, it's actually a room demand chart through Smith Travel Research that I brought. I just wanted to show you. So if you look at 2005 to 2009, 2010 to 2015, an average of those years, you can see the demand change closer to 5% on average in those years. That's the difference of when we were actually up and running with our Tourism Business Improvement District. If you look at 2016, which is that line that is solid gray, and then I want you to look at the dashed blue line. If you look at March of 2016, so the gray line, it's a big drop, about 15% in the whole in comparison year over year. These are year over year Smith Travel Research occupancy numbers or room demand numbers. That year we did not have a state basketball tournament in Billings. That's how much our hotels suffered that year, because our county commissioners decided that since they couldn't attach a fee at Metro Park onto the fans with MHSA, that they weren't going to allow MHSA to have any tournaments in Metro Park. So this is what happened to the hotels that year when we didn't have a state basketball tournament. Now, empty hotels also mean empty restaurants, empty retailers, and empty tourism attractions. The next year, if you look at the dashed blue line, we had state basketball that year. And we also had the national, or the NAIA Women's Division I National Basketball Tournament. So both of those, the reason why we had state basketball back that year was because our Tourism Business Improvement District Board said, hey, county commissioners, if you're really not willing to pay this fee or waive this fee for the Montana High School Association, we will then subsidize that fee. But we know for a fact for our stakeholders as hoteliers, as well as restaurateurs and retailers, that we have to have these basketball tournaments and these MHSA events. So that we not only had the state basketball tournament back in 2017, and you can see we went up almost 20% that year in room demand. We also had the National Basketball Championship for NAIA. Both of those events would not have happened without our TBID. We could never use any other dollars, couldn't use state lodging tax dollars for those to subsidize those events. If you look at the dash line in May, the blue dash line in May that spikes up to 25% in room demand. We had a Magic City Soccer. We had volleyball that year. We had different types of tournaments that we were able to bring in and market and bring more people in from across the region, not just across the state, because of these TBID funds. If you look at my last examples will be, if you look at the solid gray line that says 2016, and you see that we plummeted in July of 2016. Well, in 2015, which is in that average of the black dash line, we had the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. We hosted that rally the year prior. That's what happened when we didn't have that event the next year. If you look at September of 2016, where we go up in room demand about 12%, that's because we were able to host the Goldwing Road Rally. We had that rally because of Tourism Business Improvement District dollars. If you look at 2017, in September, and that blue dash line, and we went down the 15%, that's because that year we didn't have Goldwing. So it just shows you, obviously with a lot of explanation, I apologize, that impact of, these are not events that would come to Billings if we did not have this tool as far as the Tourism Business Improvement District is concerned. And I do want to stress that I understand that we're assessing guests that stay in our hotels. And the sunset is very important. When the TBID was first started in Billings, it was like, okay, we're going to give this a try for 10 years. We'll go ahead and see what it looks like on the renewal. We barely made the 50% in 2007. We actually stopped getting signatures when we were going up for renewal in 2009. I think that we stopped at 78% of our square footage. That's how successful it was. Our hoteliers really understand the benefit, and they all have a forward focus in the sense of the greater good, knowing that if they're full, restaurants are full, retailers are full, attractions are full. It is not just about heads and beds, even though that is the overlying mission, and we make sure that we take care of our stakeholders. I guess finally, I just wanted to make sure that you know that we're here for you. As far as Billings is concerned, my board is here for you. We're here for Leslie. If you have any questions at all, I'd be willing to answer anything that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, in conclusion with this, you've all received the documents that I had forwarded to Mike over time and to Jay. I have since then received the last 2 signatures so that we have all 7 hotels. We do have one hotelier that doesn't want to sit on actually 2 that don't want to sit on the board. We do have 5 board members. I have passed to them the board, the application. Once the applications are filled out, they will come to you, and then you will seat the board, basically, after the resolution is passed. We also, everything from, we have our quote for our insurance already in place. As the board carries an insurance policy on it. And I think that was the last thing. So at this time, I guess I want to ask if there's any questions.
Let's open it up to public in case they have questions as well. And then maybe we'll bring you back depending on the questions, I guess.
Okay.
Do we have any public comment on resolution number 4829? Any public comment? Please state your name and address.
Scott Conley, I'm at 617 North Second Street. My question is just, you mentioned the hotel beds. Is it only affect the hotel beds, or is, there's a lot of alternatives to hotels to stay in here particularly?
The fee is assessed on the hotel unit.
So it doesn't have any effect on the VRBOs, Airbnbs, or
Any
yes,
other
they-
public comment?
Clarification, I'm sorry, is 6 units or less. 6 units or more.
I thought it was 10 or more.
Yes,
10 or more.
I think 6 in Billings.
10 or more.
It's 6 in Billings and 10 in Livingston, I think.
Yeah.
The limit, according to my quick Mr. Google search, Mrs. Google search.
I had it here.
It's in our,
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
Yes.
any other public comment? Concerns, questions? Commissioners, do you have any questions for our guests or presenters? Warren?
As the experts on that subject, how do other communities handle Airbnbs or vacation rentals by owner, or don't they?
So those currently Airbnb and other individual lodges, those pay bed tax. Currently Airbnb is finally paying into the bed tax. But this being achieved, this is for the hoteliers within our district, which usually your downtown corridor district. However, one thing that I did leave out is that Sage or Chico, if you have a lodge that's outside of the district, they can volunteer and collect and participate. They just cannot be on the board. They can be as a participant, but not as a voting entity on the board. So if either of them would like to join us in the future, they can do so.
Thank you.
Leslie, why don't you stay for a second, because I have a feeling there's going to be a few questions. Any other questions, commissioners? Melissa,
I
you
have
look like you have
I
a
have
question.
many questions. Thank you. This is, I recognize you've been working on this for 4 years. And I want to thank you because you answered many of my questions just when you came up to the podium. And thanks for bringing this up. I feel like this is a topic that gets brought up a lot in our community, how we can use the fact that we're a tourist destination to benefit our community. So thanks for bringing it up and sharing so much information. First, I'm going to go through my questions in response to what you said, and then I have some other questions from when I was reading the document. So let me just find my notes here. Okay, so you said initially it was planned that the money would go to the Livingston treasurer, but then it's been changed to Kevin somebody? So I was just trying to get clarification because
Right, so when we first sat down with Jay and Mr. Cardis, what we found out is that you have to have a mechanism to send out the bill. So different communities across the state are finding that they have to do it differently. Bozeman has a tree and street bill that they send out quarterly. So they're able to use that as their taxation, their form of receipt. And we don't have that here in the city, but we do with the county. And so Kevin Larkin, the treasurer, they are able to put it on a quarterly bill. He has agreed a very small minimal rate to be able to send out the 4 bills to the 7 hotels four times a year. Well, 4 times a year, the 7 hotels.
So he's the treasurer with the
Park County.
Park County. Thank you. I'm still like learning all these names and they're all coming at once. So thank you for your patience with me. My next question was, you answered who's on the board. I wanted to ask you though, how will, I understand that you have to have, it sounds like you have to have the Board of Trustees set up sort of at the beginning of a district like this being formed, but in the future, how would board seats be selected?
So once the initial board has been chosen, then and the city approves the board that is in place, the bylaws will be written. We have a sample set of bylaws from both Bozeman and Billings who have functioning TBIDs that have been working very well. And along with, rules and we have sample, holy cow, the word I'm looking for. We have a sample budget and ins and outs of, the assessments and how they should be utilized. So we're going to follow that along the way. And I believe it is 4 years.
It's up to you. It's the term.
Right,
For
but I
us,
said it
we're-
in the bylaws, correct? Okay.
But essentially the board members, then the Board of Trustees would be
The hotel years.
okay.
Hotel owners or the person, the designee. We have a hotel owner that doesn't live locally, but his manager, general manager, actually 2 of those are going to be the designated seats, and we have the form for that.
Thank you. And I'm curious why, if you were told to start at $2 a night, why you're proposing $1 a night?
Because we started the paperwork a long time ago. And $1, we wanted to initially start this at a rate that was acceptable. We can move that in 1 year. We should wait 1 year. I think Billings even started at 75 cents, and after 1 year went up to $1.
And then, all right, my next question is, you said it's required to have 1 staff person to be able to form a TBID. So did you already say who the staff person was? Is that Kevin then, or?
No, that would be myself.
Okay, just wanted to be clear, make sure. And then I was curious about, you were talking about infrastructure for hotels, restaurants, conference center, soccer fields, saying that maybe it wasn't infrastructure how we were thinking. And then you listed those things. So I was wondering if you could expand on that. And it sounds a little bit like you're suggesting that this district could be putting money into those things that you named, or am I misunderstanding?
Correct. It's not brick and mortar, Melissa, excuse me, for interrupting you, but it's when you have, look at it this way, if you have a hotel that has 99 rooms and you want to encourage a convention to come here, that convention is going to need marketing dollars to come here. We have to put our bid time in, and I do this currently all the time, to fill those beds. It would be the same for a soccer conference. So there is marketing funds that have to be put out to be able to encourage those teams to come here, and time spent. So if you have, I guess, infrastructure, what I meant by that is the soccer fields need all kinds of additions to them. They are building that secondary building and they want to add onto it. And they need some stadiums and whatnot. So it works kind of in simpatico. So you can, they can come and ask us for the funds for the marketing to be able to go out for that, this particular infrastructure needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to make sure I understand, you're saying that some of the existing facilities and people that run them in Livingston could come to this business district and say, we need help upgrading X, Y, and Z. And this Board of Trustees for the business district could say, they would respond with what?
If it is going to be in return of putting people in those hotel rooms by having, say, the conference come here to for that event, or ensuring that that soccer tournament would come here, then that would be something that the board would look at. So there's a very fine line. It is not about the infrastructure itself. It's not brick and mortar product. But, you know, when you're talking about infrastructure needs, say a building needing some assistance downtown, there's many other things that go into it. You're talking printed material and background work and the marketing for the right developers to come. there's a whole nother side to infrastructure, and that is something that if, say, it is a soccer field expansion, or it is, our tennis courts, or say, a new sports facility, if we do enough of these events and people really want to do come here to Livingston.
I think I'm following. I think it sounds like what you're saying is you would support partners in the community to help them reach their goals, but not with directly giving money
For brick and mortar.
for upgrades, but supporting them in other financial ways to help market the need for example, an upgrade. Is that kind of,
That, if it were.
I'm just trying
if
to
it-
understand. Yeah, sorry.
That's correct. If it was directly correlated to bringing people to stay in the
Okay.
hotels.
Thank you.
For future events.
Thank
So
you
if
for,
let me jump in there real quick.
please, thank
I
you.
I think the way that's really gonna work is if LYSA needs to raise money, they're gonna try and do it through soccer tournaments. And that would be what they could market, right? They can market the tournament because it's gonna bring in teams that will help support LYSA because they'll get the fees for the tournament itself. But the hotels will still benefit because the participants in the tournament will be able to stay at the hotel. So that's where it's kind of a symbiotic relationship.
Thank you.
If you can hold an event, maybe it's a downtown event that will bring people in to, maybe it's a concert or a fundraiser, but as long as it still brings people in, then they can use that marketing funds to bring those events in. That will, one, aid the hotels, but will also help with other projects through the community.
So, yeah, basically, this is how much you sell this, okay?
Marcy, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you for clarifying that. I'm gonna skip to some of my questions from before for a minute. You answered a lot of them, so I just have to scroll through it. So thank you for being so thorough. So I'm curious why, it sounds like there is some flexibility for number of beds, given that it sounds like Billings is doing something different than Livingston is proposing. So I'm curious why vacation rentals by owner and Airbnb properties are not included. I'm just trying to learn.
So it is the way that the code is written for the state of Montana.
Okay.
And individual entities are not part of it. Now, again, if you, like I said before, there is a voluntary addition if you choose. However, you are not a board member. You are not a voting member of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Not that they're left out, because the CVB has the infrastructure in place. The Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce have the marketing pieces in place and are already currently using the bed tax funding for marketing to come to Livingston as a benefit. That's how it works together.
I just think it's an important question because I suspect that's what a lot of people are curious to know why. So it sounds like it's code for Montana is the answer. Let's see. So my next question is, I noticed a couple lines that stood out to me, and they seem, I'm just trying to get my head around what it means. So page 43 talks about the process, and it ends with, and I'm just going to quote here, adoption of a final resolution, creation of a board of trustees, and finally the creation of an annual budget and work plan, end quote. And previously on page 42, it says that the tax will, quote, aid in tourism, promotion, and marketing of the city of Livingston by, and it lists several things. And one of them is increasing staffing levels to provide additional marketing. So I'm just curious, I guess I'm curious about this specific, what's the word I'm looking for? This specific point, given that there is not a work plan or, the previous part that I read is not formed yet. That seems like a really specific goal without a work plan so I'm just wondering how that plays out.
Normally, there is a budget set aside for administration and staffing within the CVB to be able to assist with the additional marketing and for the trade shows and the time allotted. We are looking at approximately 10%, which is extremely minimal. But basically, it's staffing within the CVB. As we grow, we hope to see that You know, right now, just for something, Melissa, you're probably unaware of, is the Chamber of Commerce here. Has been here since 1909 and has, in the beginning, worked with nothing but volunteers. And over 108 years of conducting business, this is the biggest nonprofit in Park County. We currently, and have for many years, only have one full-time position and one part-time position. With the additional funding of the CVB since 2014, we were able to move that second part-time person into a 35-hour work week. I write grants for the summer assistance for the weekends through Yellowstone Country. So we're extremely understaffed. And when we have an opportunity to even go further with our marketing within the state and outside of the state to fill our hotels, taking a small portion of this for administration and staffing is something that's very normal with all of the teammates.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then, let's see. So here's another question I have. Since there's already staff for the city of Livingston, but there isn't a board of trustees at this point, how does that work for this staff person, which is you? Like, who would you be accountable to? Like, how does the, since it sounds like you would be sort of answering to two entities, how does that work for the person that's in your, happens to be your position, it sounds like?
No, I understand. So immediately upon acceptance of the resolution, if not beforehand, like I said, I don't have all of the applications back. That would be the first thing. I might even have them ready to come back in front of you before the next meeting. So then we get to vote on the board immediately. We would produce a board, then it would produce the bylaws, produce the governing body. And basically, I attend the meetings and I do what they want me to do. I don't have a voting position. I enforce what they want to move forward with and make the marketing happen.
And you don't see any conflict between the Tourism Business Improvement District Board of Trustees? I'm just asking because I am learning. You don't see any conflict between the district and your role in the city?
No, I'm actually already performing the role as a marketing agent for Livingston, approved by the city, and we write an annual grant annually, pass the budget, the audit every year. And, you know, I'm already doing what they are very happy with. I've had to prove myself over 4 years of what we've done for the community. And if you've looked at the bed tax dollars that have risen in increments over the last 4 years, we're doing phenomenal in Livingston and Park County because of the marketing, as well as Gardner also has a CVB down in Gardner that we currently work with.
Thank you. And then I think, let me keep looking through my questions here. So one thing that came to mind for me is, as I think about what the citizens of Livingston might be thinking, and you also touched on it, is this idea that I want to just scroll down to what you said. I think you said tourism, that some people might be thinking that tourism is a burden on infrastructure. So I'm just want to get clarity. It sounds like maybe you, I don't know if you're saying that it can be a burden on infrastructure, but we should invest anyway. And I'm also curious, well, I'll let you answer that first, and then I'll have a question that's probably more appropriate for Mr. Cardus.
Okay. I'm actually really glad that you asked me that question, and I appreciate it. One of the hardest things of my job, and I work countless hours, as my board members can attest to, trying to improve our community at all times, and that means every avenue. Whether it's a Chamber of Commerce, which is not the tourism CVB, this is the Chamber of Commerce, it's a business supportive services. And it just happens to be that Livingston is a community that was raised on tourism. They were coming here before the trains came. The trains helped them come by the train loads, as they say. And our community has been there ever since. It didn't matter that the trains, what happened with the railroad years ago, tourists still came here. They had to get gas. They had to come through our community to go to the park and to leave the park. Our community is a very intricate part of the 89-90 corridor. We have travelers from the north and from the east and west. We don't have an airport, but ours is growing. So we're excited about that. But what I hear a lot of, sometimes it's very difficult. I go to all the events and all the meetings, is Leslie, there's too many tourists. We don't have enough homes. We need workforce housing. We need, this and we need that because there's too many tourists. They're coming here from all over. And sometimes it makes me go home at night and just kind of put my head down going, it can be a burden to some, but to some of us, we look at it and go, we have a healthy community. We have a vibrant community that is going to thrive. It's going to grow. That national park is never going to go away. It's always going to be there until the day it blows up. And then we won't be here to worry about it. Until then, we have to look at the balance. And every day I'm looking at the balance for our businesses that depend on it, from the plumber to the electrician to the real estate agent, to our restaurants and hoteliers. Everybody depends on tourism. And I can correlate anybody's job in this community with tourism. And it is very difficult at times what I meant by a burden is that we have people that have moved here because they drove here with, wow, look at this place, look at these mountains. It's gorgeous. I moved here because it's this cute little quaint town. Now look at it. A couple of years later, and yes, if you want to look at the chart since 2014, it goes. But we're a healthy community. We just have some bumps in the roads because we grew really fast, and we can, I know, work that out. But that's pretty much what I meant by that. I'm going to keep striving to try to prove the fact that we all depend on tourism being here, and we should thank gosh that we don't have the kind of traffic that they have in Oregon and Washington, California.
So I'm interested, and maybe this is an appropriate question for you as a city manager. I'm interested in, let me scroll back to my question. Because I think when most people in Livingston think about taxes related to tourism, based on my experience here, I think that most people are thinking about taxes also benefiting the city budget. And I'm wondering, how does tourism and increased tourism impact our infrastructure and our departments? And I'm asking because I think some of our departments are already under a noteworthy amount of strain due to the limitations of our budget. And I'm not saying that I'm opposed to tourism. I agree with you that everything in Livingston you can probably relate to tourism. I think that there's truth in that statement. But I am curious to know how increasing tourism without increasing the capacity of various government, like city departments, like what does that look like to you? Or have you thought about what kind of pressure this is going to put on like certain departments that respond to tourists also?
So the TEEP is a little, I would say it's unique in tourist marketing because it's event-based. It is not season-based, so it's not competing directly with our high tourist season. So it's going to be those event type, things that we already see, like the Hood or soccer tournaments. It could be things like the rodeo, those type of events that we already draw a lot of people in. I think this would be a continuation of drawing those types of events in, and maybe opening us up to some more of the convention type events that we don't currently house. So I think there's some opportunities there that don't necessarily stress the departments as they currently are. It's not a long-term event or long-term impact where you're going to have that amount of traffic all the time. So they're more spot impacts, and especially when they're event-based, the staff and the departments will be able to recoup some of that cost through special event fees. If they need to shut down streets, or if there's additional trash pickup, or those kind of things that cost the city. Most of the event-based tourism events, we actually recoup some of those costs, actually all the costs, associated with the support through our special event applications and the fee structure that we charge for those events. So event-based tourism is actually friendlier to city infrastructure than regular tourism, I believe. And it's easier to plan for. It's easier to staff, it's easier to maintain because it is more predictable. And it has to be, it has to be planned ahead of time and brought to us. So that makes it easier. It still does contribute to the overall cost, obviously emergency services, whether that's fire, ambulance, police. Right now because of the Montana tax structure, we are not able to directly recoup those costs from tourists as they come through, whether they're visitors from out of state or in state because of our tax structure. Now, we do get the downstream benefits of tourism as far as we probably have more businesses than we would. We have more property value than we would. So there are greater tax revenues than we would experience if there wasn't tourism. So really the trick is to balance the costs and the benefits and try and come up with walk that razor's edge to be able to do both. So this particular, as it relates to the T-bid, I don't see that as a stressor on city services because it is more structured, it's more planned, it's more event driven. So there's things we can do to recoup those costs or plan for it. So this specifically, I don't see as a huge drain on city resources.
I guess I just want to say that the thing that stands out to me, first of all, I'll say I do appreciate you sharing so much detail. And you've done a really good job, and I would never guess that you were feeling nervous. What's that? I'm a talker. Yeah, so thank you for sharing so much detail and coming with so many answers to all my questions. The thing that stands out to me, I guess, is that the vacation rentals, which you've already addressed, is not, it's part of the Montana code, but also that it seems like the pulse of our community is, when we're talking about tourist taxes, we're thinking about, a lot of folks seem to be thinking about how to benefit the city as a whole with the city budget. So I don't know that fits into this proposal. It sounds like it's a separate thing, but I think if we're talking about taxing tourists, that the commission, we might consider how we work in the needs of our citizens, not just business owners, but and of course all of the indirect benefits to all of us by having tourists. But what seems to be on the minds of a lot of people is how to benefit our city budget from our tourist economy directly also. And I'm not sure I'm just laying that out there, I guess, is what's on my mind when I'm thinking about the response we might get from some of the public on this topic.
Well, I think we have to remember they're separate. They're separate ways, and I know I get what you're saying, but with this issue tonight, it's about it's pretty direct on how the money, I think Michael's saying it's about marketing, really, and then what we do with, how do we encourage people to join us like we were presenting from the Billings side of it. So I agree that we have to that's a big discussion down the road. I don't want to move us forward too quickly, Melissa, but do you have any last questions for her? I just want to make sure that we get to finalizing everyone having any questions answered as well as voting. Because this, now I want to clarify too, this is a process. So the public knows as well, this is an intent or the intention of this resolution. So it moves on to a public hearing at the next meeting. We'll put it on. And then from there, if the public hearing then goes back to a resolution for a final vote. And so there's a little process that happens. And then the thing after that, there's one more step, and that is 30 days after. Then it goes into effect. So we still have some time on this issue. as far as public hearing, as far as, second reading of the resolution so that we have the final vote and then the, 30 days. So,
We're trying to start on January 1st.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying the things that I said, and that's why I was asking so many questions too, is to clarify what this does and does not do, and being aware of what the thoughts of lots that when we talk about this topic, the thoughts that might be on the minds of a lot of people that live here. So thank you. That's it for me.
good questions. Or, I mean, no. Quentin, I know you had a question on that.
Well, yeah, just, I think it needs to be clarified or stated that this money is strictly for marketing. It has nothing to do with sewer water or anything like that. And I guess, I don't know if that's what you were trying to get at as well, exactly where the money's going and what it's being used for. And I guess, yeah, that's been answered for me. Thank you.
No? I have just one question on rate changes, because people always hate change when it comes to rates and increases in this tax. So I know Billings had 75 cents, they moved to $2. This is starting at $1. How, and I don't know if this is Michael, if you know this answer, Jay, how do we change it this, if saying 5 years down the road, we want to say it's $2, or someone wants it to be $20?
So I'll address that real quick. This will work.
Or I want to approve up $20.
So this will work exactly like the BID. Once the board is formed, it's their process. So the trustees will determine what that is. The easiest way to look at this is really a self-tax. This is the owners getting together saying we want to tax ourselves for promotion. So, it does get passed on to the consumer, in this case, the customer, whoever's staying in the hotel. But the idea behind the state laws and all of it is that the hoteliers will do what's in their best interest, and their best interest is to not tax themselves out of customers. So once really the commission's role in this is to approve the creation of it, and once it's created, there's really no more interaction on that level, unless they're going to change something significant, like the bylaws themselves. So once the bylaws are created, the TBID is self-governing, just like the BID is self-governing. Either one can change their rates because they're changing it on themselves, and so that is left up to them to determine.
And we don't have to approve that in the future, any of those changes.
And that'll probably be specified in the bylaws, if I had to guess,
That is correct.
the procedures for how that will change. So once we bring the bylaws in front of you, you'll see the process for that. So let me clarify that just administratively, how that works. So this is a resolution of intent. We'll pass a resolution next time that will create the TBID. Nothing can go into place until the board is created and the bylaws are created. And that will determine when funds can actually be started to be collected. So all of that has to be in place prior to any funds being collected, certainly before any funds can be expended. Even, at this, if we get it all done before January 1st, which is the goal, no money will really be available until the end of the first quarter, right? January, February, March will be the first time it's collected, and that will then go on quarterly from that point. So there's quite a bit of time before anything's actually expended. It's just we have to have everything into place before the hoteliers can start collecting the money to turn over to the treasurer when the quarter's over.
That's great.
I just have one last statement. I know I've looked into this in the past and had discussions with people, and I have seen what Billings is talking about, that there's some major success with this marketing tool in bringing in events and tournaments, or, if you go through Billings during any of these events, it's a pretty big deal, like the Gold Wing. So I see that this could be potentially a good thing for our community in bringing our name for events, because I think we have a lot of great places to have events, and I think we're missing a little bit of those events where other people are getting them, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Do we have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4829?
I move we pass 4829.
Second.
We have a motion by Maybe and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chair Howland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
Four.
Commissioner Nichols.
4. Motion passes. Next resolution on our agenda is resolution number 4830, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, directing the city manager to update the Livingston Urban Renewal Plan. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is part of the process for the bonding of the tax increment finance district to continue with that as we put towards the construction project in the downtown. Speaking with our bond counsel, they'd like to go through this process so the Department of Revenue has a clear line of how we did it and what we're looking at. So this is the first step. You're just directing me to update the Livingston Urban Renewal Plan, which is mostly already completed at this point. We've already scheduled a joint meeting for the planning board and the Urban Renewal Agency on the 7th, I think, the 7th of November. And what we'll do is at that meeting, we'll have both the planning board and the URA approve the update. We'll also invite the county and the schools, since they're part of the taxing entities within the district. They'll have a chance to make public comment on it as well. And then we'll bring it back before you for approval for the update. That's just one step in a multi-step process to go through the bonding process, to have all the documents in line, to make sure that we have everything in order. Just as a reminder, the Urban Renewal Plan is the original document that came out. I think it was December of 03.
03?
Yeah, December of 03. That said how we were going to administer the urban renewal area, or how we were going to use the tax increment financing. It addressed the original blight issues. It addressed what we were going to do with the money. I've basically gone through and just updated each paragraph to say what's been accomplished, how we're looking at going forward with this project, which is different than we had originally planned. The original plan was more of a list of things we could do, and obviously we narrowed that down quite a bit through execution. So this is just a first step in making sure all the paperwork is up to date before we go out to bonding.
Michael, before you stop talking, potentially, do you have anything to tell us as far as the updates? Anything changes, major changes, or any noticeable changes that you would like to just state?
No, and well, you get the entire update once both agencies approve it. But in general, I don't think it's anything that will surprise you. It basically says, hey, we saw what we could do. We focused almost all of it on infrastructure downtown, specifically the streets project, the facade programs, and some energy improvement programs. And that going forward, we are looking specifically at using the money for the construction project and facade improvements. And those would be the limiting areas, as well as the block baskets. They do everything. So I don't think there's anything surprising in it. You know, the original blight conditions, some of it has been improved. Obviously, the Albemarle has been updated. But there's still a lot of the original problems with sidewalks, sewer and water infrastructure, and the last 2 blocks of Main that we still haven't completed. We've made progress, but we haven't completely made the progress that we were looking to make.
Do we have any public comment on resolution number 4830? Any public comments? Any commissioner questions, comments?
If we approve this is not an approval of the details in the final agreement. Is that, I mean, we're agreeing basically to do it.
Right, so this particular resolution tonight is
Right.
just to direct me to go out and produce the update.
Right.
And then the update will come back before you. And this is only the first step in there. Part of the recommendation of the update is to have the URA re-accomplish some of their foundational documents as well. I'd give them a longer time period to do that, like 6 months to come back with any changes to their bylaws or to specific programs and how they report that. So I think there will be a long process in updates. But this particular one will get us on the road to being able to have a bond council, secure bond. Thank you.
And is there any interest in renewing this, because the term ends in January for this plan?
So once the plan is updated, if we go through with the bonding prior to January 15th, the TIP will be extended through the life of the bond.
Oh, okay, that's right, all right, I remember,
So we can-
forgot that point.
Right, so the tax increment financing will stay at the current level, we won't have to reset or decline, so we'll continue to have the same
Right,
increment we have now, but we can change some of the governing documents on how we execute using
Right.
that.
I forgot about that. Very well.
Any other questions? We have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4830.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 4830.
Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
4.
Yes.
Motion passes. Tonight, we have 2 action items. First action item is to discuss, approve, deny scheduling commission's listening sessions. Mr. Carter's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item was for your, I think, Saturday morning breakfast with the food pantry, and what schedule you would like to have for those.
And I talked to Michael McCormick this evening, and he's still trying. I gave him a date of November 10th, and he's yet to confirm that. So I will follow up with him on that. Is the 10th? Need a calendar here.
After,
Is it after?
before our next meeting.
Yes, before our next meeting and after election day. So, yeah, we were looking at the 10th still, so. And that'd be for the next meeting, which is on 20th. So it could even be the 17th, but. Yeah, how would we notice that before meeting? Is it in the paper?
Yeah, once you decide on a date, we'll make sure that we get the legal notice published.
Out and on our website and all that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I need to follow up with Michael on that.
Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. Our next action item is to discuss, approve, deny commissioners to discuss trails and the Parks and Trails Committee's drafted bylaws. Mr. Cardews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you should have hopefully gotten the updated version tonight with, I think there were just some minimal changes to it. The Parks and Trails Committee, while it's existed for a long time, has operated fairly well, never actually had bylaws. So this is the first step to formalize their process. We currently don't have a, I would say, a template or a standard for the bylaws for the different boards and committees that we have. It's probably something we can look at developing. In this case, we've done a preliminary review. Jay's gone over them. We don't see anything that's problematic in the current bylaws. I would just say that if we went forward and came up with a more standardized format, we would just look for them to update it at that point.
So we have, Jean Marie, would you come up and present the basics of the bylaws and answer any questions?
Sure, thanks, Madam Chair, Junior Suli, Chair of the Parks and Trails Committee. You're right, you didn't have a template, so it took us a little while to craft this. This was based on a few different models we looked at, in particular the Park County Parks and Rec Board had some of these same things. I did talk to our attorney about a few of the things in here about appointments and terms, et cetera. The one change from the draft that you received in your packet is 5C, which was the notice requirements. And that was in response to my conversation with the attorney about how we provide the notice. And I think Darrell, who was on the committee, had some language she suggested as far as providing the city manager a schedule of their meetings. So this is it. We just really felt like we needed to get the bylaws done because we're required under the resolution that created our committee to have bylaws. And we also really look at this as a way to provide some focus for the committee as far as what they're working on. And anyone who is interested in being on the committee knows what the committee is all about, how often we meet, how long the terms are, when we meet, et cetera. So I'm happy to answer questions about any of the provisions of the bylaws. We did, again, discuss this last Wednesday, and this is the document we approved. Apologize that you didn't get the full one. It happened very quickly because you got it Thursday, which was I hadn't given the change to do it.
Any questions? Commissioners? Any public questions or comments? Commissioners? Well, I think just because I work with this committee, they work really hard and they went through a strategic planning, a lot of work, and they wrote the bylaws as a volunteer board, and I think they did a really good job of covering how the Parks and Trails Committee works and their intent. So I think they did a really good job. And I wasn't in the strategic planning meeting, I was out of town, so. Well, I guess we could just bring it to discuss, approve, deny. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the bylaws for the Parks and Trails Committee.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four?
Commissioner Freeman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe,
Or
Commissioner Duty.
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a couple of things for you tonight. Do we start with the fun stuff or the stuff that takes work? Let's start with the work stuff.
Okay.
Speaking of boards, I think we probably need to look at how we operate our board of adjustments. There's currently been variation or variances that have been waiting 3 months to meet the board. The board has not been able to reach a quorum in that time period. So people that applied for variances for their construction for their houses in August still have not been seen. That is not good. So 2 variances have been waiting for 3 months and 1 has been waiting for a month. We were also not able to meet a quorum this month. Not sure we're going to be able to meet a quorum in November. So we have, I would consider 3 options moving forward. One is to, I'm not sure that's a real option. I'll give you 2 options. One is to add to the number of people on the board to be able to reach a quorum, so that you could have a lower percentage of people attend and still meet the quorum. I think the problem with that is we've had an open spot for 2 months, 3 months? How long have we had it open? 2 years. 2 years. We've had an open spot for 2 years. So I'm not sure we'll be able to fill an increased membership on the board to get to that point.
What are the numbers now?
All right, there's 5 members.
There's currently 5, it can be as many as 7.
So we could increase it by 2, and there's 4 sitting. Or 5 sitting.
4.
Yeah, 4 sitting members.
The quorum is 4 out of 5.
So I think that's problematic on a couple of fronts. So the other option is, this originally was a function of the commission. The Board of Adjustments was created 10 years ago to take over this responsibility from the commission so that the number of public hearings was less, the requirements were less. I would suggest that we may need to reverse that and bring this back to the full commission for public hearing. Any variance that does come before the commission will require a public hearing, which is what we currently do, and then would require a vote by the commission on approval. I would change the process a little bit that it currently rests with the Board of Adjustments. Currently, they apply and they get a hearing immediately. I think we could probably change that since we don't want every application to come before the commission, where the staff would review it initially and then give their recommendation back to the applicant, so the applicant would know beforehand whether or not the staff is recommending approval. So at that point, they can decide whether or not to go forward to come before the commission as a whole. I assume that if we recommended yes, they would, and that if we recommended no, they would have to think about that. So that is one way to, I think, fix this problem. This is, if you, and for a little background for Commissioner Newts, this was the problem we faced and why we faced a lawsuit with the Board of Adjustments, is because we were making decisions without a quorum. And now that we are requiring a quorum, we're not reaching it to make decisions. Obviously, it's not a level of service I think is respectful of the community.
Right.
If you're coming before us for a variance for your deck or your fence, it's really not something you want to wait 3 months to get an answer
Right.
before you can proceed. So I would submit that to you, that we probably need to make a decision on that sooner rather than later. We can put it on the next agenda. You can discuss it now if you'd like, but staff recommendation would be that we pull those decisions back to the commission and change our staffing process to try to minimize the number of variances. Our process for variances has changed considerably over the last year, I would say, where before we were approving many, probably more than we should have been approving. We have been more stringent in adhering to the actual guidance in the ordinance for before we allow ordinances. So there are fewer and fewer that have been approved because we actually required a real hardship from the property you own to allow variance.
I'm going to suggest that we don't discuss it in full tonight without putting it on as an action item for public to have a chance to look at this issue and discuss it. I think it's an important one, that it's sort of one of those things you don't know about until it's like in front of us. So if we put it on as an action item, would you guys be okay with that?
I'd second that.
So-
I'd like to see control back to the commission on this. Well,
What exactly was the reason that the board was created, to make the meetings more efficient? Like, the
I think it
commission
was
meetings
to
more-
create a different body to make those decisions. It's one of the few boards we have that actually has decision authority. We could make it a recommending body, but I don't think that solves any of your problems, because you still are required a recommendation before you could act on it. So the Board of Adjustments is one of the few boards that has decision authority on behalf of the commission. So their vote on variances is final. And I think that has led to some problems in the past as well, too.
So if when we put it on as an action item, could you have some of those, kind of that process, so we can discuss the process, what's not working, moving our step forward, and then have a discuss, approve, deny decision made that night with all those pieces laid out to the public.
Sure.
Any arguments on that?
Yeah, is there an expertise that you need for?
Really, the expertise is the planning director. Your staff recommendation is going to go over all the requirements for you. It's going to provide you, ahead of time, okay, this is what the variance is asking for. Examples are fence height. People want a fence higher than the 6 foot limit, or setbacks is another common one. And there are times when that is appropriate. I would say the new duplexes down in Geyser, that was one where we did approve variance because Flushman Creek runs through the backyard. So that is a unique hardship of that property where a variance makes sense.
Yeah.
But if there's no unique property of the lot, then there's really no reason to approve a variance in that case.
Okay.
So I think we've made it an easier decision process because we're aligning it with the code much more strictly than we have in the past. So it's much more black and white. Before it was, I think, more of a judgment call. We tried to eliminate that from the process.
Not that we can tell in our city.
And so that's the actual work part. Can you bring up the pictures for me? So these are the best pictures I've gotten in a long time. We'll bring them up in. Is that yeah, that looks great. If you can you rotate it? So this is it is. It's the wastewater treatment plant. It's our new water reclamation facility. operating. So that is, that is a great thing. Each one of those little pockets you see there, that's one of the aerators on the bottom. So if you've been out there and saw all the little aerators in the bottom along the hoses, that is actually working. You can flip to the other picture if you want. So we have let me get the numbers for you because it's impressive. Over the last 2 days, we have put in 90,000 gallons of seed sludge from Bozeman. So that is a tanker truck of seed sludge from Bozeman that we pumped into our sewage treatment plant to get the good bugs in there to start the reaction and the processes. We also have about somewhere over 250,000 gallons of influent from our own sewer system that is in there starting this process. They're starting up. It actually has worked really well so far. There were some hiccups that we might have encountered that we did not at this point. So if everything continues to go on schedule as it has, by Wednesday mid-morning, so that's tomorrow morning, we will actually decant for the first time so that the effluent will go to our UV disinfectant and we'll have actually treated sewage from our new plant. Obviously, there's still a lot of construction that needs to go on. Most of it's cleanup. But the actual guts, the working part is in there. There's the automatic mode. So that's a huge step forward to get that up and operating. So that's a huge win for all of us, I think.
Great. Do you break a bottle of champagne over
Yeah.
anything?
We should, like on the side of it,
Yeah.
tank it probably, I don't know, we'll have to talk about it. Kristen.
Let's see, Mr. Rector go for a swim.
Just because I'm still learning, I just want to make sure this is the fun part.
This is the fun
This is your fun
part,
part.
yes.
Nice to make sure.
This is the fruit, so I
We've done a
will,
lot of work.
I know,
Melissa.
I
This
know,
is-
I'm just,
this
I
is a
was
big
just
deal for us.
teasing, I was teasing about the best pictures.
and I would like,
What's your best?
these are great captions.
I think it's great, but I know you have a wife and kids and
I would like to add that, our engineering team has done a great job, and if you have any doubt about that, just Google the Polson wastewater treatment plant. Their design was faulty, it's currently sinking. It's brand new, and they're gonna have to fix it, or it's gonna be unoperational in a short amount of time.
Wow.
So they have to put in new piers, they have gaps underneath some of the SBRs. It's a mess right now. So thanks to our engineering team, our public works guys, they did a great job making sure that this went through. And that's some of that, when you guys saw the change orders and the process we went through, that is the kind of thing that we were avoiding. And so this is a huge win, and I just appreciate you working through this process with us, because I know there was a lot of technical aspects to it. But the A2S and obviously Dick Anderson Construction has done a great job out there. And the fact that it's up and running, and we could be seeing the benefits of it here as early as tomorrow, is just a great end to this project, or at least the middle project.
Yeah.
I do like your word usage though, like guts, when we're referring to the sewer plant. So thank you for throwing in those words.
You can't kind of.
You can't.
You can't.
I was like, really?
Good one.
Anything else?
That is all from the city.
City commissioner comments, Melissa? And you don't always have to comment, just FYI, it's up to you.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I just want to, it's a really general comment, but I just want to say, in my short tenure as a commissioner, I've been, first, I'm grateful to all of you for welcoming me on board and for voting for me. Thank you. But also, I've been really impressed with the folks from the city that I've had a chance to interact with. I think this example that you just put up on your beautiful pictures, this is like one example of, I think of many of how hard people are working behind the scenes and not always getting credit. So I want to say thank you to all the folks that work for Livingston, that we maybe don't think about until something goes wrong. But there's so many things that are going well, and it's such a complicated machine, the city. And there's so many people behind the scenes working hard every day to make sure it functions. And I've been really impressed so far with who we have in Livingston. So that's my comment tonight.
Warren?
I think what was on the agenda tonight is really very illustrative of what Livingston is facing. On the one hand, you've got a request for increasing tourism, which is, of course, good for the economy. On the other hand, you're looking to put up small housing for the people, and I'm not Bernie Sanders, believe me, looking for housing because they're not the beneficiaries of the increased tourism. Tomorrow, I'm going to put on the city site the article that I received today. And basically, it shows how Aspen, and then it bumped down to Jackson Hole, then they include Bozeman in the problems that have arisen from the increased popularity of an area. And you probably all know Livingston's making the New York Times this weekend. So now there'll be 2 national articles, that one in Forbes, promoting Livingston. My solution is to diversify the economy and get something else here, some other type industry that pays good wages and doesn't depend on a sporadic market. I'm going to put that, like I say, I'm going to put the web address for the article on the city site tomorrow, and it's very interesting. This is not to put down tourism; it's to put a different perspective on growing the economy and the negative effects of just basically depending on tourism.
Can you email us the link?
That's what I'm going to put. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to
I'm
email
gonna put
it
it
or
on
you
this-
get it on the site?
I'll do both.
Yeah.
I'll do both. Thank you.
Thanks. Mel?
Just a question. I was on the board of Sister City, which I gave to Sarah. So I'm asking a question, two things. I can go back on it or we can assign. We'll listen to that. Whichever works.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do you want to discuss like what's on the board? How much time do you put on that board and when do you meet?
Well, does she have an assignment yet?
Not yet. We have talked,
Oh, okay.
her and I had
Okay.
shed some questions on that, but
Mhm.
when
Well,
do you guys meet?
Yeah, well, I've worked with Donna Pace for quite a while, and they do good stuff. But, I mean, if we want to make an assignment, I'm still on the tree board, so whatever works.
What days of the month do you meet for the sister
Oh,
cities?
God, I'd have to look all that stuff up.
It's the third Wednesday.
Yeah,
It's the third Wednesday. So
Third
Sarah was
Wednesday?
meeting with her, but it's the third Wednesday.
At what time?
At 7 in the library.
And just once a month? Okay. I actually had that on my agenda, just boards for Melissa, but
Whatever.
good to know.
Just back to the listing session, do we want to limit it to any certain thing or maybe, a handful of things or any thoughts? Just trying to think of structure. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you think about that.
Yeah, I feel like the last time it was repetitive, not in important things were said.
Right.
And I feel like actually it was one of the more interactive meetings we've had, which is great, but then it went on and on with the same issues. So I don't know, after time, 4 hours or 3 hours, that's just a long time for
Yeah.
the public as well to participate in one issue or in a couple issues. So I don't know, I don't have an idea yet, but
We can just wing it too.
thought you had an idea on this previously, you mentioned to us.
Yes, my idea was not to be there. But actually,
That was it.
it was to alternate so that they could have one more in the specifics of city stuff, so that they could ask all those detailed questions to me without all of you having to sit there and listen to the same answers I give you here.
Right.
And then one where you could speak directly to more of the higher level issues. I guess keep it more of a strategic discussion than into the details of a
Right.
particular item. I guess the question I'd have for you is do you all plan on attending them? I guess before James attended them and had one other person attend with, so we always kept it below a quorum.
Right.
If we're planning on still doing that, then we don't need to notice them, but if we're planning on 3 or more attending, then.
Yeah, no, that's why I told Michael, we need 2 weeks or 1 week.
For notice, what's it, 72 hours? Yeah,
Something.
Well,
saying,
and the breakfast isn't all community, all commission, so that one should be.
Well, that's what this is gonna be.
Yeah,
It's gonna
this
be
is-
breakfast.
Yeah, this is the breakfast one versus the other ones will be just that 2 or less.
And I haven't done it for a while, because
I think not having me there will be helpful, just because when people see the city manager, they want to delve into the details.
we'll have to answer questions.
And maybe we ask about priorities. You know, just a simple question.
Exactly, yeah, and start off with
And-
that,
Because
kind of like,
did anyone turn in their priorities?
I'm working on it today, I was. working on it.
Just checking. I'm
Exactly.
gonna ask you guys all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe we just ask and then do a timeline limit listening session, just what are some priorities, what's important, you know, versus, you know, hours of the same priorities. Give us a little bit
Right.
of your ideas and then
Here's what we think our priorities, kind of go from there.
that'd be.
And that sounds good.
You like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
My only 2 things were, thinking about boards, and Michael, I don't know if you addressed them with Melissa at all at this time, or at this point, but I can help with that as well, just, but we have that printout with all the board.
And I think I would probably suggest putting it on the next agenda and just reshuffling boards.
Okay.
That way you can, everyone can discuss which ones they're going to cover. Let us know, CCC, who else is interested in that easy switch. Or, it just depends on which ones you want to trade and how many each commissioner would like to be involved in. Because I know most are more than one currently, correct?
What?
Boards.
I'm on one,
I'm on 1, 2, 3.
and yours are quarterly, and, so we'll just.
No, they're monthly.
Monthly, oh, I thought you had a quarterly one.
I'm on airport board, which at 8 AM in the morning,
I think that's changing back to you.
just because I've been out of town. And 911 communications, I don't know what it's all Greek to me, what they're talking about, but it's nice to have a city person there, it's a county person there as well, and to know what the real needs are.
Well, if we put it on the next agenda, do we have enough time? I mean, how many other big issues do we have? I mean, last time we had the shuffling on the agenda, it took us a while.
Well, you have the Board of Adjustments decision on the next one. You're gonna have the second reading of both of the ordinances that we talked about tonight, as well as the T-bid. Now, we've already discussed those, so they shouldn't take.
Yeah, the T-bid
That's
really,
long,
yeah.
There will be the urban renewal plan. That should come back from the planning board and URA meeting on the 7th, so that should be on the next one as well.
Yeah, I'm on that board. You are.
So those are the main issues that we have right now. Anything else on the topic? I think that's it right now. I'm not saying they're gonna come up in the next 3 weeks, but that currently is.
Yeah, because we're 3 weeks out.
Site every day.
So if it looks like time-wise,
Okay, because I'm
that
not put that on.
meeting or the next one, I guess, right?
It's, yeah,
So it'd be either the end of November or the first one in December.
Then
Would we
my,
do it in January?
oh,
We could just do it now.
It is a short time. There's only one meeting, probably. That's a good point, Jay. I didn't think about time. One, potentially two, and not do it in January.
That's what I was saying. I just texted.
Right. Well, and some of them won't even meet in December, so, yeah. My last thing is, speaking of like timing and calendar, I'm wondering, I know this has been an ongoing thing, and I don't know if I'm asked, like, working with Faith in she's new in this role, but we do need to have in our calendar of events on here, like the meeting tonight, the Main Street Montana meeting wasn't in this calendar, but I think it's helpful to the commissioners as well as the community. In my opinion, we should have as many calendars or meetings as we can on here. You know, so that we know when things are coming up, what things we're gonna go to. Then we can say, hey, is there going to be a quorum? Or not, so we don't get into any predicaments. What do you guys think? Do you think we need to have more calendar of events on, like, for the commissioners in our agenda so that we can, and/or for the public events?
Yeah, the calendar of events, you mean,
Yeah,
basically.
like tonight's meeting wasn't in there, the Montana, or the Main Street.
Oh, on the, agenda, yeah.
Mhm.
Might help you more
I
specific
just,
and stuff like that.
I know in the past, sometimes just planning, because I have like 100 meetings a week, it helps me.
And isn't there is it next week? I don't see it on there, the planning 101 meeting.
We have to confirm with the Department of Commerce, but I think it's gonna be in the week.
I'm just thinking, I think that one's another meeting that some of us might be planning on going to, that's not on the calendar. So I think it's a good idea for the reasons you said.
Well, then we won't have another agenda until right at the day of that meeting. So then it's sometimes missed.
But we do have the master calendar, you know.
Yeah, but then the public as well.
Yeah, I'd say.
I look at this, I really do.
I do too,
Put it into, so for my sake, and I think others do too. The public does when they look at the agenda in the library. That's all I have.
And so on that, I would just say, especially for the public, the website calendar, if you haven't been there, it's updated. There's now an actual calendar link from our homepage that has all the different calendars associated with it. And we're updating that to include the board calendars as well. So
And it will be all in one page.
it's, well,
Right there.
you can see it. So we should have this up and running shortly. You can see the library board meeting, planning board meeting, sister city board meeting, Parks and Trails meeting, airport board meeting. And we'll have all those set up. And there's actually a list of calendars off to the side there where it says master. So you can actually click on that. You can go to the Parks and Rec calendar, you can go to the Public Works calendar to see when things are open and when things are closed.
Awesome.
And then the city
I like
commission
that.
calendar there. So we will work on, we're trying to transition to that being the main focus, especially for the public, because it's easy to access. And then they can drill down to what they want to look at. Most commission events, I think actually all commission events automatically flow up to the master calendar.
Right.
Some of the Parks and Rec stuff does not, so if you want rec specific, you have to go to the rec calendar, unless it's a big item. We'll put city closures on there. That's gonna be hopefully the main point of information for people. So you can see Veterans Day, the offices are closed, general election, the offices are closed. Once we finalize the meeting with the Department of Commerce for next week, we'll stick that up there on the 8th. There's our next commission meeting on the 20th.
In any meeting that commissioners may be involved, having them in the agenda as well just helps the public to see, that it's a commission-based meeting.
Sure. And that would, hopefully that will, between the two of them, people will be able to find it. This way people won't miss those between agendas.
Yeah, I like it. I like that a lot.
I like it. Thanks for showing us that. So, do I have A motion from the commission
So moved.
for adjournment.
Yep.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Freeman, second. Oh, no, I have to say, yes, I do. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This meeting of the Livingston Commission is adjourned at 8:34.
What is this for?
Yeah, I know. I have to
That's,
go on.
that's the.
That's the hard part.
That's a different.